Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And today we're combining your two favorite things, the draft and trades. We're going to look at all 10 possibilities for the Sharks trading up in this year's draft, see if they have the ammo, and then I give the most dumbest odds of them moving up. So all that plus some more, who knows, on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. And of course, I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already, please subscribe, especially on YouTube, as I try to get to 1,000 subscribers by the draft. That's like 2 a day. So just for 2 subscribers a day, you can, I guess, get me coffee. I don't know, whatever. So if you haven't, make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. All of our shows do go on YouTube first. That's a nice little bonus. But anyway, so today we're going to be looking at potential draft trades for the Sharks. And if, the Sharks wanted to move up, what would it look like? And this is actually an article I wrote for Fear the Fin. It should be coming out on Thursday at some point. So if you want to actually read it, or if you want to listen to me, or if you want to do both, we can have a nice little read along session. So let's start with what the Sharks have. So, in order to trade up, you have to actually give up something, right? And right now, realistically, they don't have too much in terms of getting you like good quality stuff. But I mean, they don't have a second round pick, which would be, they gave that up, of course, for the Adin Hill trade last year. So you can't package your pick number 11 plus your second round pick to move up because you don't have a second round pick. Potential guys who might be on the block. Again, this is all just speculation, but like Kevin Labanc, Brent Burns, like those guys aren't pieces that are going to kind of really move you up in the draft this year, especially, I guess maybe Kevin Labanc or Brent Burns. But again, as I talked to, about a couple weeks ago, look at the teams ahead of the Sharks. Like, would it make sense for them to acquire a Brent Burns? Are they a Brent Burns away from potentially, contending for a Stanley Cup? And Montreal, no. Arizona, no. The Kraken, no. The Devils, no, not really. So it's, it's one of those things. But the two things they do have, though, they have Timo Meier, which, again, I've talked about before. I don't think they're trading Timo Meier just because they've said, not only have they said, but they've also backed up that they want to contend for the playoffs. They want to try to, make the playoffs this year. They want to try to win. And trading Timo Meier seems counterintuitive, right? If you want to try to win, why would you trade one of your best players to arguably your best player? Why would you trade him right now? So unless Timo Meier says, I'm not signing a contract extension, then that's a whole different conversation. You do have your 2023 draft picks. Now, of all of those, I would say the first round is untouchable. And here's why. Next year's draft, you have generational talent. Like Connor Bedard, who's tore up the WHL at the age of 16. He is a potential franchise-altering draft pick. And even if the Sharks are trying to win, you still don't trade that lottery pick. Just those odds, you never know if you win the lottery, and having him potentially there, that pick is untouchable unless you know you're making the playoffs and know you're maybe contending for a Stanley Cup. You can't trade that pick. So they also do have all their second and third round picks. and they have their prospects. And of their prospects, I think the only real untouchable ones to me are Eklund and Bordelot. And I think the other one, like your Aussies, your Robins, if the deal is good enough, you could potentially trade them. But for the sake of this exercise, let's just say the Sharks are going to trade up. Let's go through the teams. We're going to start at the top of the percentage chance of this happening. So the Canadians, of course, have the first pick of the draft. They are, of course, hosting the draft as well. And Shane Wright has been the prize for their terrible season. So for them, I think adding Shane Wright to a core of Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield is just too tantalizing. And the first overall pick hasn't been traded since like 2003. So I have this as a 0.0000001% chance of happening. As fun as it is to be like, hey, the Sharks should trade for the first overall pick. Sorry, guys, it's just not going to happen. It's just you very rarely see the first overall pick being traded for, and the Sharks just have too high of a mountain to climb going from 11 to 1. That's just too many picks. If the Sharks were like third, you could maybe do something with that, but that's just too high of a mountain, and Shane Wright isn't helping you win. As great as Shane Wright's going to be, Shane Wright isn't helping you win, get into the playoffs next year. Yeah, just not happening. So let's look at another intriguing one, though. The Devils. So, of course, they won, got to move up a couple spots. They're a very intriguing team because, as I talked about before, where they're a kind of young, fun core looking to kind of make that playoff push. They have plenty of cap space. They've been whispered as maybe Johnny Gaudreau potential suitors. They're kind of ready to make that move. So, and it seems like that they are willing to sell this pick to try to get an NHL-ready star or an NHL star right now. That way they can move from their rebuild into their let's playoff contender and kind of close the chapter on their rebuild. So again, the only thing the Sharks had that they would really want is Timo Meier. And, I'm going to keep hammering it. Unless Timo Meier goes to the Sharks and says, I don't believe in the direction of the franchise, et cetera, I want to get traded. I don't see the Sharks trading Timo Meier unless they really can't come to agreement on the contract situation. But again, the Sharks have said what the Sharks have said, and their actions, including re-signing Tomas Hertl, they're trying to clear some cap space this summer to make some more moves. They're trying to win now with the core they have, and I think Timo Meier is too important of a piece to that core. So I'm going to have this at a 1% chance. I'm not closing the book because you never know. It could happen. I would be shocked if the Sharks traded up to number 2. But you know what isn't shocking? That's right. That's a good transition. I said so. Taking care of your stomach and your gut health. That's where Athletic Greens comes in. It's tough to taking care of yourself, right? It's usually, trying to just figure out the process and going to get all these supplements and vitamins and, trying to figure out what actually works for you. That's where AG1 from Athletic Greens really comes in. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of these things. And, the important part of taking a multivitamin, tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose the one with the high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself, and your subscription comes with a year's supply of vitamin D, which is so important to add in these as the getting out of the winter months into the summer when we don't get as much sunlight. And Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews recommended by professional athletes and trusted by leading health experts. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you free 1-year supply of immune supporting with vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health with the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Next, we do have a favor to ask you guys. We are at Lockdown. We are doing a listener survey. So right now we put it together survey so you can learn more about your listeners like you and make your favorite podcast like this one even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about the Locked On podcast. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. Take our audience survey. Go to lockedon.com/survey. Thanks for your help. Okay, so it's not going to happen with the Canadiens. Probably not going to happen with the Devils. Let's look at who's next. The Coyotes. The Coyotes have been in the burn this mother down to the ground phase, right? They've been taking on bad contracts. They've been taking on as many assets as they can. They have seven picks in the first 2 rounds. That's insane. So this is why you do this, is to try to get good players. And even though the Coyotes are in asset collection, you still have to pick good players right now. And I think the potential of picking Logan Cooley, who some people think could actually be the best player in the draft, is just too good to pass up. And while the Sharks, the Coyotes might think about like, hey, we could gather more assets from the Sharks, who's probably still going to be a creamy middle team. At some point, you still got to pick good players. And I think Logan Cooley is just too good of a prospect for the Coyotes to pass up. And you have to start your rebuild somewhere. And I think Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley is a pretty solid start to the foundation of your next core. So I got that at a 1% chance of actually happening. Next, the Kraken. So last year, I think they might have gotten one of the best players in the draft. I had Matty Beniers for a long time. I had him number 1 on my board, and then I went with William Ekman at the very end. But Matty Beniers is going to be a great player for the Kraken, and for them, I still think they're kind of in the same place as the Coyotes, where it's they just have nothing in the cupboard. And while the potential of gathering more assets is great, I think still moving from 4 to 11. And just the tier of players available there, I think for them being able to grab the best defenseman, whoever they deem as the best defenseman on the board, and pairing that with Matty Beniers, and there's your 2 kind of pillars. That's too much. That's too good a chance for them to pass up. So I have a 1.5% chance of that happening. My beloved Flyers are next at 5, and they did stuff last year. They tried to fix their defense. They traded for Ryan Ellis, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Cam York finally got some real run last year. But they still have talent issues, and they traded away Claude Giroux at the trade deadline, and it looks like they're finally admitting to what's going to be an actual rebuild here. So again, moving from 5 to 11 is not as big of a jump, but I think for them adding whoever that second defenseman is, again, that's too good. They've been trying to fix their defense for a long time, and then being able to pair, Nemec or whoever with Cam York, I think that's what they look to do right there. So, all right, I give that a 1.5% chance. So the next one is interesting, though. We have the Columbus Blue Jackets. While the Blue Jackets, they have been kind of doing a really good job of adding quality picks, and this pick is actually the one they got from Chicago in the Seth Jones deal. So they could be a team that could potentially look to move down to try to get more assets, especially if maybe there's someone in the Sharks prospect pool that they really like. But the tricky thing is they have the 12th pick. So they're actually picking right after the Sharks pick. So if there's a guy they like in that range, they can probably just sit tight and most likely be able to, get him. So, unless there's a couple guys that they like in that range and they feel like that they don't want to reach for a guy, maybe they don't like anybody in this tier, but maybe that next tier that they really like. There's some possibilities there, but my thinking is, though, like in this draft, especially after you get past like these first 5 picks, it's really just going to be like pick the guy you want, right? So if you really like, a Cutter Gauthier, or if you really like a Kevin Krasinski, just pick the guy, because it's such a mushy middle between picks kind of 5 through 15, where, we at Locked On, we just did a mock draft that's going to be starting to come out here soon. But like, you're going to see like a lot of these guys, it's just like, okay, well, I personally like this guy more, but you talk to some of the other hosts and, well, I like this guy more. And it's just that like all these guys between that like 5, 15 and 5 or 20 pick is just going to be whoever you like, and just grab them. And if other people feel like it's a reach with this draft, whatever. And I really think that they could be looking at like a Frank Nazar. We saw how, they really like those Michigan prospects. They drafted Kent Johnson. They signed Blankenberg out of Michigan, after I think just kind of continuing to go back to that well of Michigan prospects. And Michigan's really good at pumping out prospects. So I have it as a 4% chance of potentially happening, just because, I think we don't give the Blue Jackets enough credit for what they're doing. And I think they're doing a really good job of kind of adding quality pieces, and especially with their draft, where it feels like they go with like a home run pick like Kent Johnson, and then they go with a much safer pick like Cole Sillinger, who Cole Sillinger is going to be like a quality NHL player for a long time. And then if Kent Johnson hits, like Kent Johnson hits type of thing. So I think they're going to go with the same strategy here, where they're probably going to go take a swing on a guy and then get a guy where they know they're going to get a quality NHL guy. So, and I think to do with that strategy, like having picks kind of a little bit away from each other doesn't, kind of makes the most sense. So, all right, let's go on to the Ottawa Senators here. So the Sens, they're kind of sneaky. Who knows? We joked plenty of times about they will pick the 150th pick, guy on the draft board and stuff, but they have a really solid core of Stützle and Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris. And I wouldn't be surprised if this pick is traded for an NHL caliber, like an NHL star type of player. Like what if they go to the Bruins and are like, hey, we'll give you number 7 plus whatever you want out of our prospect pool, and we'll take Pasta. Not that I'm saying that's going to happen, but like if David Pastrnak really is like, yeah, I'm not going back to Boston. The Sens have a ton of ammo, where they have they've got a crazy draft, prospect pool, because they've been drafting so high for a long time. And even though, I may not agree with some of their picks, they do have a lot of talent in their prospect pool, and they do have a lot of, kind of core NHL players. And adding Pasta to that could really be kind of the move for them to move them out of that basement team into a kind of young, fun, potentially playoff type of team. So, for the Sharks, though, I mean, going from 11 to 7 isn't too much. But again, for the Senators, is adding like a Kevin Labanc going to really move the needle? Or is Brent Burns really going to want to go to Ottawa? Or, grabbing more prospects from the Sharks prospect pool really going to be enticing enough for the Sens? I don't see it, but crazier things have happened. I don't think Timo Meier would want to go to Ottawa. So I'm going to also give this one a 4% chance of happening. All right, before we move on to the Red Wings, let's take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championships, NHL, hockey conference finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for our sports and wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. So head to their website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, the Red Wings. I wouldn't trade with Steve Yzerman. You're going to lose this. There's like 2 people I wouldn't trade with. Joe Sakic with the Avs, and Stevie Yzerman of the Red Wings, because you're going to lose those trades, especially if you're a newer GM as whoever. I know Joe Will's been working, he's been around the block a little bit, but those guys are ruthless. So yeah, and like Yzerman, he's just really good at drafting. And I know, you look at like when they drafted Moritz Seider, everyone was like, oh, that's a reach. And now Moritz Seider is, potential Calder winner this year. Lucas Raymond might be the best player in the 2020 draft, and that had, Alexis Lafreniere. Simon Edvinsson, which I'm still going to say William Eklund's going to be a better player than Simon Edvinsson, but Simon Edvinsson is looking like he might be the real deal over in Sweden, and he had a really nice season over there. So I'm still taking Eklund. I'm still got the Eklund over Edvinsson. But I wouldn't, if Yzerman calls, I would just silence your phone and maybe like throw it away, because you're not going to, whatever he's going to trade from you, you're going to lose the trade. So 2% chance of that happening. I just, again, if he calls, you just take your phone and you chuck it. All right, guys, this one though, this is the interesting. The Sabres are at 9. This is where I think the Sharks could actually move. So they kind of frisky last season. They traded Jack Eichel, and they got some picks. Owen Power, of course, was their first overall pick last year, and he made his debut. They have 3 first rounders this year. So they have 9, 16, and I think it's 28 right at the end of the draft. So 9 is their own pick, 16 they got from Vegas in the Jack Eichel trade, and then 28 is the Florida trade. So they could be interesting team where it's like maybe they want to trade some of their pieces for a prospect or a player. Again, I don't think any of the Sharks guys are worth 9, 16, or 20. Maybe Brent Burns at 28, but again, why would the Sabres trade for Brent Burns, and why would Brent Burns go to Buffalo? But if you think from the Sharks perspective, right? What if they fall in love with Kevin Korchinski, or they fall in love with somebody, and especially one of the defensemen, right? And the Ducks are probably looking at a defenseman to pair with Drysdale. Jumping the Ducks to make sure you get your guy, if there's a guy that you really love, not the worst idea. And moving from 11 to 9 isn't going to cost you too much. So maybe it's a 3rd round pick this year, or maybe it's a pick in next year's draft, or maybe it's a prospect, and you're like, hey, I'll give you 11 plus Ozzy Weisblatt, 11 plus Brandon Coe, or 11 plus pick whichever guys other than Bordelot or Eklund type of thing, or just like, again, I know I talked to when I talked to Byron Bader, he likes all those 2020 guys, but again, he still only said he said 3 might make the NHL. So if you say, here's a prospect who, has a 50-50 chance of making the NHL, and again, making the NHL in Byron's world is playing 200 games. But if there's a guy you love and you think the Ducks might try to pick him before you, that's the move. So I know, Doug Wilson Jr., he likes that 2020 draft class and the way they're progressing and stuff like that. But if you think you can get a guy who can really make a difference, and I'm starting to think Kevin Korchinski might be that guy for where the Sharks are at. Is it worth sacrificing one of these guys here to try to move up to get a defenseman that way? And also, not only are you adding to your talent pool, but you're keeping a division rival from picking up a guy who's then you're going to have to face for the next 10 to 15 years. So I have it as a 10% chance. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Doug Wilson Jr. is going to be very patient with the draft. He's shown that, but if there's a move to strike, I think this is the one. Going from, again, if you got to sacrifice a prospect who may or may not make the NHL, and you believe that whoever you're going to pick at potentially at 9 is going to really help your team and really add to your core and be a better player than whatever, one of these guys, you got to think hard about it, especially too, again, if you can keep the Ducks from getting that player and going through the Ducks development and process, and we've seen the Ducks have been really good about developing their players. I think that could be the move. So, and finally the Ducks. I don't think it's going to be happening, because I think if for the Sharks to move up one spot, it's going to cost them more than it should. Like the Ducks are going to charge you an arm and a leg because they know you really, really want a guy. Especially like I was just saying before, if it's a guy like, if you really love Kevin Krasinski and you think he can be a guy and they know that you really love Kevin Krasinski, you're going to have to pay 125% on the dollar. I just don't see it happening. And again, if it's 10 and 11, if there's a guy you really love at 10, then there's probably a guy that you might love, maybe just not as much, but who could be there. So unless the guy like is falling, maybe a Frank Nazar are slipping through the cracks and start falling down type of thing, but I don't see it. I got I have this moving up as this one spot, just a 3% chance happening, just because I think that the Ducks, if they're gonna, if you're gonna trade the Ducks to move up one spot, they're gonna take advantage of the fact that they know you're desperate for a player, and they're gonna charge you an arm and a leg. So again, to recap, I don't think the Sharks are gonna be moving up, but if they want to jump Bucks, look at the Sabres. That they've been going through their rebuild. They've been acquiring guys. Maybe you sacrifice one of these 2020 draft picks if you think that, Kevin Krasinski or Frank Nazar, if he's there, or whoever is available, that there's a guy that you really, really want at number 9 and you don't think he's going to get past the Ducks, that's the move right there. So it'll be interesting to see how the board shakes out. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. And, especially with the draft and now less than a month away, we got to start hearing the whispers of who guys like and stuff like that. So fun times here. So make sure you guys stay locked in here at Locked On Sharks. Of course, you can find me you can find the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, wherever, you can find the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You guys know I'm manning those pretty regularly. So you can also listen wherever you get podcasts, as I was about ready to say, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey. If you're listening on Apple, please do leave a nice 5-star review. It does help the show grow. Really appreciate that. Of course, watch on YouTube. The goal, 1,000 by the draft. So that's basically like 2 a day for the next month. So actually more than that. So I guess 3 a day, whatever. Math is hard. Excuse me. And then, so make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. I've got some secret interviews I'm working on getting together here. So you're definitely going to want to check those out. I'm in the process of getting those all booked right now. I'm going to have more draft profiles coming up, and of course the live show. So tomorrow, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time, going to be doing a live show. We're going to be looking at Frank Cervelli's top 50 free agents and who could be a nice little fit for the Sharks. Well, if they're able to kind of move some money off the books and if they really want to try to compete, maybe spending a little bit of money on one of these free agents to really try to add to your core. So I'm going to be going through that. I've got some targets I've already kind of circled and going to be looking at our realistic contracts for those guys too, to try to be able to add them to the Sharks and see if the money actually works out. So make sure you guys are subscribed for that. And I'll be back. Yeah, like I said, I'll be back tomorrow with that. Go check out the Locked On NHL show. Keep up with all the playoffs and go check out any of the other amazing shows on the Locked On channel, such as Locked On Warriors. All right. Bye, friends.